experience like no other. I'm often asked which one of my trips around the world has been my favourite. There have been a few, I have to confess. I've scratched the proverbial surface travel-wise in my autobiography, My Way, but I've only been able to commit some of them to print, along with some of the adventures I've had. Visits to Bulgaria, Mexico, the USA, and Australia, where I learned that most of the wildlife has a mission statement in place. That means they want to do all they can do in their power to kill you, especially if you're a bloody palm, as I found out in Australia. But good times all, without exception. One of my favourites surrounds a certain Mr. Farr. Now, to find out more about him, you'll have to either buy my autobiography or sit me down in a nice bar somewhere and ask me directly about him. Then you can buy my book. One of the highlights of my time travelling around the world has been, without doubt, my visit to Kenya, where many people have, after visiting that great continent of Africa, spoken of how much they want to return. But it's out of more than the sort of yearning you might have to revisit anywhere in the world. You know the sort of thing I mean. You may have visited Paris, Rome, Vienna, or New York, all wonderful places, and ended up thinking, yep, I'd like to head back there one day. Africa is different. You feel drawn to going back straight away, compelled. It's something that you just have to do. One writer described the continent as feeling like home, even though he was as British as they came. Maybe that's because historically, life on planet Earth, human life as we know it, is reckoned to have started on what is now the greatest continent of them all. It's why Africa is often referred to as the cradle of civilization. Not forgetting, of course, my 3-night stay at the Muthaiga Country Club in the heart of Nairobi, a beautiful setting where you would think you're actually in the Masai Mara itself. After all, it was where the film Out of Africa was filmed, starring Meryl Streep and Robert Redford. I even had the room that both Meryl Streep and Robert Redford used within the film itself. A rather splendid experience. And of course, Nairobi was where my uncle was based for the British Army, in his commission as the Command Sergeant Major, so some great family history to visit too. Whilst I was in Kenya, in the Masai Mara, the camp I was staying at was shared with people from the local Maasai tribe. They soon became a familiar sight, tall, graceful, and ridiculously handsome to a man or woman, full of colour and always with a smile on their faces. They must have seen thousands of unfit and overweight tourists get flown in and out every week. All of us armed with barrage of questions and cameras, eager to spend time with them. But why wouldn't you? They are, as I wrote in my autobiography, My Way, magnificent company, especially as guides when you go on a safari. They don't just see the animals before anyone else, they sense their presence. You might think you're looking out onto a dry and fairly featureless plain with nothing much to offer in terms of wildlife. Before, and making you jump in the process, one of the Maasai guides will sidle up next to you and whisper, "Leopard! Where?" I couldn't see one, but they had. They'd seen one, two, or even three, a huge group of them, long before they'd become visible. Sunning themselves, lazy and yet alert at the same time, and inquiring eyes scanning the visitors, including myself, of course, the leader concluded they were harmless and drifted off to the land of Nod once again. Stunning. I left my jaw on the floor of our Land Rover, open top and sides, I hasten to add, and it's probably still there. After our trip into the park, one of the Maasai invited me into his home, an enormous honour for me, which I was beyond touched to accept. We all sat and chatted, his family and me, as I looked over some of the things they'd made, not as you might expect to sell, but to use as part of their everyday life. Jewellery, a robe or two, some pots and dishes, all handcrafted, all unique, and all beautiful. Sunset came, and wholly content with my life, I shared it with them. No one spoke much. We all just sat and enjoyed the view and each other's company. Smiles wildered upon all our faces, just like the smile that is on mine now in memory of such a wonderful trip. The beauty of it was how simple it all was. The power of being with people, sharing their day-to-day lives and learning from them as I did. Remarkable. I will go again. For more stories and interviews with famous people, please visit the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show, available on all podcast media platforms, and visit the Lord Russell Baker YouTube channel. And please subscribe to ensure you don't miss any amazing future stories. I look forward to seeing you all on the inside.